So Unanet has more than a decade of experience helping organizations manage their projects and people for maximum efficiency. The beauty of Unanet is that it's all one system, one database, one user interface, one login, and it's purpose-built for project-based organizations. Our customers are typically matrix-type organizations where multiple people work on multiple projects and where labor is the primary driver for revenue and the primary contributor of cost. Unanet helps automate the work of professional service organizations from that initial opportunity where you're forecasting and planning through the execution where time and expenses are recorded, the approval workflow, and then through project management review as well as billing and invoicing and accounting, and then completing the cycle using metrics, dashboards, and other reports to understand the performance and take reaction, replanning, and forecasting as necessary. This is a quote from one of our early adopters of Unanet Financials, Hugh Shaw with Intera Corporation. They're a 665 user financial customer that migrated from Deltek FMS. And one of the things that he's stressing here on this quote is the importance of a single solution or a single system. Unanet built an industry-class project accounting management system and complemented it with financials. I knew I could find an accounting system, but that's not hard. Finding this type of system, one that brings it all together and keeps my project teams happy, well, that's just incredible. Our entire culture has changed with this new era of technology. So he's obviously very happy with Unanet Financials, but it really speaks to one of the reasons why Unanet is different than other accounting and financial systems that are out there. We started with time and expense, added the resource planning and forecasting capability, and then we developed and added on project accounting, that costing, billing, and revenue piece where you actually had a full project subledger. And then lastly, with Unanet 10, we added the general ledger and accounting functionality. So that's a little bit different. A lot of the other systems out there started with accounting and then developed the project accounting and the project management piece. Or instead of developing it all in-house, they've gone out and purchased other solutions and added them onto what they already had. So here's a few differentiators about Unanet. We are one solution for people, projects, and financials. It is one user interface, one database, one application, and it all has a consistent look and feel. Unanet Financials is not something new. It's built on the same existing database. We just added new tables and functionality. So it has that, again, that consistent look and feel. It's important to highlight the importance of integrated resource forecasting and reporting, because when you have people-based businesses, you need that ability to optimize your use of resources from the perspectives of cost, capability, skills, and investment in the business to achieve differentiation and to really, stand out and meet your profit margins. Unanet's product roadmap and development is based on feedback from our customers and what they tell us they need. So who is an ideal candidate for Unanet Financials? It's simple. Any project-based organization where labor is that primary source of revenue and contributor of cost. Size is not important as having that core focus on projects. Another factor and characteristic of an ideal customer is organizations that need integrated resource planning, budgeting, and forecasting. And they want that ability to have the full bid to bill to book for project management and that full life cycle. Any organization that has increasing unique billing requirements, particularly with invoice formats, that's another customer that would really benefit from having that functionality within Unanet. Profiles of our current financial customers. Unanet has over 1,200 total customers. Of those, 68 are currently upgraded to Unanet Financials. 79% of those financial customers are using our on-demand model. And that's one of the things that we're seeing as a trend as customers start migrating to Unanet financials, we're seeing where they're changing from on-premise or locally hosted to the Unanet hosted databases. Our financial customers range in size from 10 employees to 500 currently. We have several much larger organizations that are in the works right now. We have 2 of our financial customers who have been through DCA audits that went very, very well. These included both the pre-award audits for the cost-plus contracts as well as the change in accounting system reviews. And these customers have migrated from other systems like QuickBooks and GCS are the 2 primary ones, but also from CostPoint, FMS, Sage, GP, and SL. You can see here this slide shows the 2 new license types that we've added, project tracking with financials and project portfolio with financials. With Unanet 10, there are many enhancements that were rolled out for project tracking and portfolio license types, and these complement other solutions when Unanet financials may not be the correct choice for your organization. So what's different about Unanet financials? Before we jump into the software, I kind of want to highlight some of these for you. Unanet offers a wide range of roles that enable stakeholders across the project lifecycle to access information in a secured way. For example, a project manager can see accounts receivable for his or her customers if that's something you choose to give them access to. You know, the new financial roles that we've added to the system allow for separation of the different functional areas, AP, AR, and GL, as well as the segregation of duties, so that you can have a viewer or reporting role, a user who does that data entry, a poster who can actually post to the general ledger, and then a financial admin who can actually do the setup with that associated area. Things like creating vendors, creating payment methods, adding new accounts, those sorts of things. Unanet Financials allows for multiple legal entities in a single database. And you have that ability to share vendors, customers, and even a chart of accounts across the different legal entities if you choose to do so. The dynamic, scalable, and flexible data structures, that's really a mouthful. But what that basically means is there's no hard coding, there's no predefined segments, there's no rigid or restricted formats. Intelligence is not restricted to numerical codes, but it's based on the relational setup within the system. And this is something that's really better for me to show you when we're in there rather than trying to explain it. But the hierarchy is not tied to a number. It's based on, again, you specifically designated in the setup. The ability to leverage organizations for projects and people is another key differentiator. If you're able to align your projects and people within organizations, you can reduce the length of your chart of accounts. And that's because every transaction that posts to the general ledger in Unanet is a combination of a natural GL account as well as an organization. The flexible, easy to use, easy to change and update hierarchies for both financial reporting and cost pool calculations really makes adding accounts and making changes within your organization very simple. We have customer-driven posting rules by account types. So if you have multiple posting groups assigned to projects, it becomes very powerful. It is a one-time setup, but we're no longer restricted by whichever transaction posting we do the majority of. So by having the ability to create more than one set of posting rules, you can eliminate or reduce the need for all of these adjusting journal entries. GL budgets are very easy to create and update. It's a very flexible tool. You can have an unlimited number of GL budgets by organization, meaning they can be at the company level, by division or department, or by business units. They can be configured by year, and then you choose the GL account and the level of account. So if you wanted to do it at your detailed level accounts, or if you wanted to do it, at a roll-up summary level account, again, you can create the different versions. They import and export from Excel so that you can take them out, apply escalation factors. It's a very simple tool to use. Powerful real-time reporting, having multiple project financial statement formats with the roll-up capability allows for data analysis, both for your projects as well as your company or your different business units. You can run these reports either on posted data or on data as it's being entered real time. So that's a selection criteria. All of the financial transactions allow for attachments, which is really helpful. So when you're going through your review and approval process as you're posting the general ledger, you've got those documents right there for substantiation. You also have them available at year-end or when you're going through audits. It just makes it really easy when you can attach transactions to vendor invoices, customer payments, journal entries, all of those different types of transactions. And of course, because we've got customers who have now migrated from multiple different accounting systems, we've been able to develop customer-driven migration tools that really help facilitate the implementation and reduce the potential for errors, and it really streamlines the process. GCS Convert is one of those tools that we developed in partnership with some of our Unanet partners and industry experts. And what it does is it allows us to rapidly convert data from Deltek GCS into Unanet financials, saving you time, cost, and reducing the risk. So Unanet works with you to develop a mapping in preparation. So we have a one-time meeting where we basically do a mapping between the two systems. And then as the tool runs, it can take the GCS chart of accounts and map it into the Unanet chart of accounts, and it allows you to bring in large volumes of transactions very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the system now and do a short demonstration. And I'm hoping the screen size is okay. So with Unanet Financials, you can see we've got the financial dashboard. We have that consistent look and feel that you're used to throughout Unanet. You can see the new menu items that we've added for accounts payable. This is where you're entering your vendor invoices. You're creating those vendor payments, whether it's for an individual payment or like weekly or biweekly check runs. You can create partial payments, put payments on hold, those sorts of things. We also have the ability to create vendor invoices from reimbursable expense reports. So that's really nice and really helpful. With accounts payable, we support positive pay, so we have a standard export that you can send to your financial institution for positive pay. We also allow you to create as many different payment methods as you need, so you can have system checks, you can have manual checks, you can have electronic or ACH payments, and again we have that standard notcha file format that can be configured for your bank's requirements to send that information. Under accounts receivable, this is where you record your deposits and then apply those deposits to your customer invoices. I should mention that all of these transactions can be imported. So if you receive a download from your bank or a feed from your bank or you have a lockbox, those can be imported deposits and then you can apply those to the individual invoices. Invoicing and posting. For those of you with the current tracking or portfolio license, this is where you can do your billing and revenue. To this, we've also added an expense cost post, so once your expense reports are fully completed, fully approved, you can post those to the general ledger. And we've got the labor cost post that does your labor distribution. It takes your fully approved or completed timesheets and posts those to the general ledger as well. And one of the things we have when you go through a financial implementation There are admin properties that you set at your database level to decide what level of detail you want to post. So if you want your labor to post to the general ledger, by person, by hour, by day, you can choose the level of detail. You could do summary type reporting. Again, it depends on your requirements and what you want to see from a financial reporting perspective. And then under the general ledger menu, this is where we have a lot of the standard accounting functionality, bank reconciliations, the GL budgeting, your indirect rate calculations and cost allocations, your fiscal period close. You're allowed to have multiple financial periods open at any point in time. And the fiscal period close is really nice. It's almost like a checklist for your month-end close. And then, of course, journal entries. Accountants love journal entries. So I want to start by going in to people and showing you some of these new roles that we've created for financials or that have been added. So if I come down here and just go to one of my users, you can see we've added the new financial roles. So now we have the system administrator, and then your current administrator is what we call a P&R or project and resource administrator. And then we've added the financial roles. And you can see, as I said, we've got them for the different functional areas, AP, AR, and GL. And then you have that ability to segregate based on responsibilities. If it's a reporting role, an entry, posting, and then admin where you actually do that setup. Now, just like Unanet, when we talk about projects and resources, when you talk about financial roles, organizational access does apply. So you can go in and say what organizations does the person have access to? Is it across multiple legal entities or just one legal entity? Is it across all divisions or departments or just a specific division or department? So depending upon how you define your financial organizations, you can restrict their access that way or grant access that way as well. One of the easiest places for me to start is with the GL accounts, right? Setting up your chart of accounts, because that's kind of the core of an accounting system. And Unanet has a standard chart of accounts that you can use, or we can import your existing chart of accounts exactly as you have it. There are, as I said, no predefined segments. This is set up with this numbering format just because it's logical. Accountants like things that are logical and they like numbers. So this makes sense, but it's important to note that this bank account is a child of cash, not because it begins with the 10.01, but if we go into the setup, you can see that for each account we specifically identify the financial parent. So when you get into doing your financial reporting and that roll-up reporting, this allows you to have accounts where transactional entry is allowed, or if it's just a summary level, again, for reporting purposes only. And of course, if transactions are allowed, they can be restricted by date, and you can tell the system if projects are required. So when you set up your chart of accounts, you have this alphanumeric field. Again, there are no segments here. This is just how it's been defined in this demonstration database. You give it a description or a title. What type of account? Asset, expense, liability, or revenue. That basically just tells the system when it goes to post, is it posting this as a debit or a credit, depending upon the type of transaction. And then all of these accounts, as I said, can be limited to all legal entities or all organizations, or can be said, you can set it up so it only is used for specific organizations. And you'll notice when you set up your financial organizations, again, it can be just at the company level, or you can have it based on different divisions, and then within those divisions you could have regions, and within those regions you could even have departments or another subcategory. There's no limit to the hierarchy here. You can create as many levels as you need to support your financial reporting capabilities within your requirements within your organization. So when we talk about this chart of accounts, One of the other things that's really important, I mentioned the posting rules and the posting groups. When we go to the posting group setup, you can have a default setup that's applied to your projects, and then you can have alternates for other, if you have different sets of rules depending upon, different projects, you need things to post differently. So we can go in here to the default, and you'll see we have these account categories, which basically are the different types of transactions that post to the general ledger. And for each of those, we define an organizational source. Remember I said that everything that posts to the general ledger is a combination of an account as well as an organization. So these organizations can be at the legal entity or at the company level, or they can follow the project, or they can follow the person. So you can define that based on the transaction type that's posting. And then you can say if it's a single fixed account, so accounts payable always post to this one account, or I can come down here like for my labor costs, and I can say that labor cost is going to follow the project that the time is charged to. And to find the account, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at the project and the project type to find what the account number it should be posted to. This looks like a lot, and it's a little bit hard to understand at first. It's a one-time setup, and once it's set up, it makes this very easy to maintain. This really is kind of the brainchild or the traffic cop. It controls, how the entries flow through the system. Okay, so the next thing I like to go to are the cost pool groups. So you can have multiple cost pool groups in your database, or you can have, so we can support very simple structures or very complex structures. I'm going to go into one that's very simple. This is just at the company level, and you can see it's made up of the basic fringe, overhead, and G&A, and then we have one internal service center for facilities. These calculate in the order that they're listed here on this screen. And if I go into this, you can see, I give it a name. I tell it, is it calculating year to date, or is it going to calculate monthly? So my indirect rates would be calculating year to date, but normally my service centers would calculate on a monthly basis because I would want to allocate those costs to overhead and G&A or whatever that basis is on a monthly basis as part of my month-end close. So you set that up. And then you say, is it calculated based on the actual amounts in those GL accounts, or is it based on a fixed amount, hours, or percent? So again, you have a lot of flexibility for defining these calculations. Do you want the calculations to post to the general ledger? And should they update the rates in your cost structures? So this is where you go in and you define the numerator. In this instance, you can see it's the fringe expenses, and then the denominator. And here, we're calculating these at the company level. Again, this could be done by division or by business unit. You could set these up, again, depending upon how your company calculates those rates. One of the things I like to show you is, I said we have that searchability, ease of use functionality. You can go in here and just type. If I don't know my account name, I can just start typing it, and it will automatically find it for me. And we have that throughout this financial area. So it's the same with vendors. If I'm looking for a vendor, I have that lookup feature. So I set up this calculation. And again, it's pretty straightforward. Let me go ahead and cancel that. And then I can go in, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how this works. I like to show this first because to me, it was just, I loved the way it worked. It made it so much easier. I come from a background where we did all of this in Excel, and we had multiple spreadsheets that we were ticking and tying. So having this in one place was just so nice. So we set up we go into the general ledger menu to the cost pool calculations, and we define what period do we want to calculate this as of. And we can list it. And then I come here, and you can calculate all of your cost pools at once, or you can do each one at a time individually. And we just run that calculation, and then we can list it. And then from here, I have that ability to preview it. I want to look at this before I do any posting or finalization of these calculations. So this is my summary screen. And this shows me for each of the different cost pools, what is the pool, the base, and the rate that calculated for this period. So it shows me my individual periods. And then I can drill into this and I can see, so I can trace these transactions, exactly what makes up my numerator, my pool, and my base, or my denominator. And I can even go in and say, what makes up, this dollar amount? What is in this benefits administration account? And it shows me these are vendor invoices to Cigna. So I can actually trace the actual transactions that are being used in the calculation. Then it also tells me if it's posting to the general ledger and if it's updating the rates in the cost structure. So that really helps. Again, it gives you that ability to trace those calculations. Then I have a statement of indirect rates. This is a single screen view, and I'll see if I can make it just a little bit smaller so you can see it. That shows you basically starting with your trial balance here on the left. So I have all of my accounts and the dollar balances in those. And then it shows me for each of the calculations what's used, dollars, what accounts are used in the numerator and again the denominator, and how those dollars are being allocated. So fringe is being allocated to overhead and to G&A. And that's what this is showing me. It also shows you can see it comes down and it totals, and these totals all agree to the summary screen we looked at previously. And it also shows me here if I have anything that's not being used. So if I had an account that wasn't set up properly for its cost pool, for the hierarchy, it would show me this here. So again, very powerful single view of your indirect rate calculations. The other thing that I like to show you, and I probably should have shown this to you when I was talking about the chart of accounts, but if we look at, I can run this reference report, which is basically showing you my chart of accounts, but it's the cost pool hierarchy for the chart of accounts. So this shows me when I used fringe expenses in the calculation, all of the different accounts that roll up to that. So you can see very clearly how the setup or the hierarchy is defined using these reference reports. The other thing that I like to point out, and I don't know if you noticed it, Unanet has those configurable dynamic dashboards. And what's really nice from an accounting perspective is I can create my different lists depending upon what I need to be working on, what I need to review and see. So if I work in AP, I can go straight to my vendor list where I set up my vendors. So this takes me to my vendor list and my vendor setup. So this is where, in addition to having the profile information, I set up my vendor information. So I have my profile information. I also can have my lists for my transactions that are sitting in use or submitted waiting to be posted, right? So I can look at all of these things in one place. It makes it easier when you're doing your review or when you're getting ready to start closing things at the end of the month to make sure that everything is posted and that you don't have anything sitting there waiting to be posted or in use that hasn't been completed. When we talk about the chart of accounts, defining that, I mentioned the different roll-up reports for financial reporting. I'm going to go in and run a few, well, helps if you set this properly. Go back one. I'm going to run my income statement just so you can see. This is showing you a detailed level of all of my accounts, showing my account numbers. So this looks like something I might use as I'm reconciling my accounts and going through my month-end review. I can go back to the criteria, and I can have another version of this that I save, and I can change, the reporting level. I can turn off the accounts, and now this is going to look more like an external report or something I might give to someone at the bank. It's much more summarized and a much cleaner report. So again, you can save different versions of the same reports. You'll notice that all of our financial reports export to both PDF and Excel, so that's really important. And then if we go back to criteria, the other thing that you can do is you can compare actuals to previous year. You can also do your budgets. Remember how I said you can have multiple versions of your budgets. So I can compare budgets versus actual and see that variance as I'm running these as well. I want to go back to the financials menu, and I want to show you a few of the other screens over here just to look at some of the functionality. I've mentioned budgeting several times. You can create, again, different types of budgets, and these budgets can be either at the company level or they can be by your different divisions or departments. And you notice you can have budgets at the balance sheet or the income statement level as well. And you for individual legal entities or across all your legal entities. I'm going to go in, and this shows you the setup screen. So if I go into this, you'll see this is at the company level. So I could have a standard budget at the company level and then one for division 1, 2, and 3. So they're just different names to track all of this. And what this shows you is these are being, my budget is done at these different roll-up level accounts. So these aren't at the actual level where I'm posting transactions. These are all summary level accounts. And you can see it's just spread across the 12 periods. What's really nice about this is we have the import and export feature. That means that you can start with, as of period 12, export it, spread it across the different periods, apply an escalation factor, and bring it back in. At the end of the first quarter, say, if you review budgets quarterly, you could export your budget. You could re-baseline it based on your performance in that first quarter and import it with a new name and actually have that, so you have your original budget and then a re-budgeted or reforecasted budget. So, and then those are all available for reporting when you do your financial statement reporting as well. I mentioned the fiscal period close, and this is where you'll see when I go in here, this is where I can close everything all at once, or I can use this screen almost like a checklist as I'm going through my month-end activities. So when I finish entering my vendor invoices and doing my final check run, I've received all my recorded my deposits and applied my payments. I can check these off as I'm going through the period. You'll see here, if you look at the dates, accounts payable is actually closed for period 7 because we've moved on now and are open in period 8. But you can have as many of these open as you need. And then here, again, I'm on another dashboard for journal entry for my general ledger. So if I want to go in and look at journal entries and see what's in use, again, this is showing me what's in use. I can go in and I can edit this. And the left-hand menu here is the same for all of our different financial transaction entry screens. So we start with a summary or header type information. So for journal entries, this is where I'm entering my document date and the post date. And this screen looks like it'll let you set a different post date outside of the fiscal period, but I can tell you when you try to save it, if these are not aligned, the system will stop you. It gives you those wonderful red error messages. Your journal entries can be reversing or recurring, or both, reversing and recurring, and you have your reference information. The details screen is where you go in and you specify the different GL accounts that you're recording the transaction to. And then in this instance, because it's a journal entry, you've got your debits and credits. Here you can see this is all being done at the company level, but again, this could be at a different level. depending upon how you've set up and structured your financial reporting requirements and how you record your transactions. You'll notice over here to the right that project is grayed out on all of these, and that's because, again, when we looked at the account setup, for each account you specifically define whether or not a project is required. If I came down here and added another line and I selected a direct account, and I'm just going to choose one of these, you'll notice that now a project is required because, again, it's based on that account setup. So we have this same left-hand menu, summary or header information for the transaction, details where I'm allocating it to the different GL accounts, and then I can have my attachments. So all of the transactions, again, allow for different types of attachments. I'm going to go back to here. The other thing I wanted to do is you can copy journal entries. So maybe they're not recurring. I'm going to get one that's already been posted. I'm just going to list this so I can show you that. So these are posted journal entries, and you'll notice here this is just showing the date and the period. In the search criteria, I can also come down here and say who actually posted this or who created it, so I can have some of that audit trail. Or I can even filter by the person who submitted it or the person who posted it, so, which helps me find different types of transactions and look for things. It's kind of an audit trail type functionality. So here, if I redo this, you'll see it's going to show me some of that. So now it's showing me who actually created it and posted it. And it looks like Chris does most of the work with our journal entries. Once they've been posted, your options are to view it or to void it. If I go into view it, you'll notice that I have the ability to copy it. So just like the expense reports in Unanet, once they're completed, you can copy them. It's the same thing with journal entries. Once they're completed, they can be, or once they're posted, they can be copied if you need to use them in the future. Kind of like, it's not the same as a recurring entry, but similar type functionality. I'm trying to think what I didn't show you here. Let me go to accounts payable. And we have our accounts payable aging. So this can be done in a very summarized fashion, or it can be show all of the individual vendor invoices. So right here I'm showing the open vendor invoices as well as the aging. If I go back to criteria, you'll see we have the option, we can do it based on document date, due date, or the invoice date. And then I can sort this and show vendor balances only. So maybe I don't want to see the individual invoices, but I just want to see totals by vendor. I can run it that way as well.
Hi, Robin. It's Tandy. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tandy.
Hi.
Yes, I can.
We had a customer that's asking about billing and invoicing in Unanet. If you wouldn't mind demonstrating some of that process.
I'm happy to do so. It's actually in my notes. I want to make sure I have time to show that.
Okay.
Yes, I will go there right now. If I go to billing and invoicing, I like to start by showing our billing and revenue summary report. And the reason I like to show this is because this report really takes me through and helps me monitor the status as I'm going through that billing process, right? So I'm going to use this report and I'm going to come back to it and refresh it as we step through this process. We mentioned one of the things that makes Unanet's billing and invoicing so powerful is the flexible invoice formatting tool. So I'm going to come over here to Admin Setup and I'm going to go to this invoice format. And you can create as many different invoice formats as you need. You could have 2 or 3 formats for each customer, or you could have one for each customer, or you could have them, again, define them how you need them based on your requirements. The reason why you might have more than one for each customer is you might have a summary invoice that you're showing almost like a cover sheet or total type information, and then detailed invoice format that's showing, hours by person by day, or maybe with rates or inception to date and current period hours. So you've got that flexibility. If I go in to show you the tool, you'll see that it's basically you make your selection criteria for what you want to show and for the format here on the left, and then this preview will update as you make changes. So what I mean by that is if I want to change this invoice format to subtotal or to group by task, all I do is I click that, and then you'll notice when I refresh the preview, it's changed now and it's grouping these by the different tasks. If I want to change the format and move my fixed price information below my T&M, again, it's very simple to make those changes. Then we have the different tabs across the top for the different types of data that you can pull into your invoices and how you want that formatted. So you can see here for your T&M labor, again, you can change it so you don't have to call it labor, you can call it something else. And you define the different columns of what you want to see. So in this instance, we're showing task, labor category, and person, but you can show cost element, location, pay code, different types of information. You can even change the header information on the invoice, so instead of saying labor, I could add something that, so instead of saying labor category, I could change that and say position or role. And maybe instead of saying task, I could say work breakdown structure or CLIN or SLIN. So you've got a lot of flexibility. You can subtotal by those different things if you want to as well. Do I want to show hours, inception to date hours, comments, a lot of different flexibility there. With expenses, you have that same type of ability of choosing to show comments. You can show, again, the different fields that you want to show. So you have a lot of flexibility. So once you do, you define, there's some admin setup you go through where you define your invoice formats, your invoice numbering formats, some basic posting rules. Am I posting my revenue, my cost plus revenue based on provisional rates or actual rates? And how am I recognizing my revenue? So you define these posting groups. And then there is some project level setup that you have to go through for billing and revenue as well. So I'm going to list my projects and go into one of these to just show you. If I go in, and I'm just going to choose one, to this project, you'll notice on the accounting tab of the project, this is where I say at the project level, is it fixed price, T&M, or cost plus? And this can also be set at the task level. And then I can also go in here and I can define my total value and funded value. And if I want the system to, I can limit my billing or my invoicing based on the funded value. So Unanet will automatically create those funding cap adjustments for you and show those on the face of the invoice if you choose to do it that way. You can also limit your revenue based on the funded value. And what that means is we create those funding cap adjustments and we put them in a funding cap adjustment account, and then if you come back in later and update the funding at the project or the task level, that you have the opportunity to generate the revenue and the invoices the next time you do your billing posts and you create those invoices. So in addition to this accounting setup that helps facilitate the billing and invoicing, we also have some billing setup at the project level. And this is where you go in and you say, am I invoicing this as an individual standalone project, or am I grouping multiple projects together on a single invoice using that lead and contributor functionality? I define my invoice format and my number format, and this is my primary invoice format, because remember I said I could have a summary format as my cover sheet, and then I could define an additional format. You see here it says details over here on the right. So I've got two invoice formats grouped together, almost like a cover sheet and then my invoice. This other tab is where you can go in and you can put in a header, description type information, and then you could put in a memo or footer type information. So this allows you to have things, you know, if you have a certification or a test, or for questions, please contact, or that type of information. You can also choose to pull in a company logo. You can show a contract number or order number, different types of information. So once you've done your setup, the next thing that you do is you go through the actual process. So I'm going to go over here into my financials dashboard, to the billing and revenue, and the first thing I do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a billing and revenue post. And what this does is it takes all of my completed time and expense, and I'm going to say include actuals through, and I'm going to go through, I'm going to go through the previous month. And I'm going to say that I'm going to use a post date, the last day of my previous month. And I'm crossing my fingers hoping that this is a good date and that I'll have data to post. So I can see here I've got information to post. And just like with the indirect rate calculations, I can click through and see exactly what it is I'm getting ready to post. So I can trace these transactions and look at it, review it in advance if I want to. Okay, so I'm going to go through here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post this information. And again, I can post all of my data at once. I can filter it using the selection criteria and post by project manager, by customer, by project. I've got different selection criteria for how I choose. I like to do things in a batch methodology. It's much faster. I can gain some efficiencies. So I've done my post. And what that does is that's going to recognize my revenue or deferred revenue and create my unbilled. So if I refresh this report, you'll notice now that I've got my unbilled showing up. So I can see for my customers, I need to create invoices. I've got stuff sitting in unbilled. And I've also got some draft invoices here. So the next thing I do after I post my information, I go in and I can add my invoices. And just like the post, again, I have selection criteria, so I can do them all at once, or I could do them one project at a time, one project manager at a time. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to, again, include everything through the previous month. I'm going to invoice it using today's date, and I'm going to post it using today's date. So I'm going to list this, and you can see here I'm generating 2 invoices. I'm just going to go ahead and click these and generate the invoices, and then I can list those. And you can see these are the 2 invoices I just created. If I come over here, you'll notice that I should have 2 more. Now I've got additional projects that have draft invoices. These 2 did not move from unbilled because you cannot create draft invoices on projects where you've already got existing draft invoices. So these 2 would need to be completed first. So from here, I can go in and I can review my invoice.
Robin?
And you'll, yes?
It's Tandy. I have a customer who wants to see the bottom of your invoice example, just to see like a total viewpoint of how it looks. Okay, so this is a combination.
I've got 2 invoices being rolled together here, and this one's showing the total amount on the invoice. And then I have the second one that has the hours by day by person. And again, it's totaling the second invoice as well.
And she was asking about cumulative by task on an invoice. And I'm thinking if you choose to group by task in your format, you can get the labor and expense and...
Yes, it's in the invoice format.
Yeah.
And so, well, I have to go to the right place. But it's in your invoice format. You would specify that that's how you want it done. Because remember, if I come over here to my, I'm just going to go to this one. I can choose to subtotal by task, or I could group it by task and subtotal. But if you want to show inception to date hours, you would click this here. And you'll notice now it's showing inception to date hours as well as the current period hours, current and inception to date. It's on this summary tab where you say, do you want to show inception to date amount as well? So you could show inception to date. So I've got current period hours. Well, let me bring this up. Current period hours, inception to date hours, current period dollars, inception to date dollars.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the other thing, you notice you can show your outstanding customer AR balance on the invoice as well. So again, lots of different options as far as how you format. As I'm reviewing this invoice and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wait a minute, Matt Lauer does not belong on this project. this looks like a problem to me. I'm concerned about this. I don't want to send it out because I don't want the whole invoice rejected if this doesn't look right. So I can come up here using this left-hand menu and go to the T&M labor, excuse me, and I can find Matt Lauer's time, excuse me, and I can choose to defer it. Select it, come down to the bottom, defer it, and now when I go back to the invoice, you'll notice that he is no longer showing in my labor. I have deferred that. What that means is it's still sitting in unbilled, and it will pull into the next invoice that I create unless I go back and unpost that and change the time entry or make a correction or adjustments. So in addition to being able to defer this time, like you saw me do, the other thing that I can do now is I can go in and I can edit this and I can change the hours or the amount. So we've got that ability to make adjustments right on the face of the invoice. Most of us are not going to do that. We're going to go back and fix the underlying transactions, but I do have that capability of doing it here from the face of the invoice if I need to. And I can do the same. I was showing you time and material and expense. I can do the same thing with my cost plus labor and expenses or my fixed price items. Additional items, these are things that I can write directly to the face of the invoice. And so you notice they might be things like an additional charge or a discount. It might be a write-up or write-down, taxes. If I have a retainer or a withhold, a set-aside, I can put those right here and it adjusts, again, right on the face of the invoice. I can give them a discount, and I'm just going to say $1,000. And then if I go back, did I not save it? I did this yesterday, I think, too. And if it's a discount, of course, it would be a negative amount. There we go. So now it's showing you right on the face of the invoice. You can also edit these header and this footer information, the memo and the description fields, because you can get there directly from the face of the invoice, and you can change those if you need to. So lots of flexibility there. You know, I'm looking at our time, and if I'm right, we only have about 6 minutes left. So I've spent a lot of time talking. Do we want to go to questions, or how are we doing?
Hi, Robin.
Hi.
I'm here. I did have one person say that they were eager to share this information with their team. We are recording the webinar today, and I thought you also, that I could also mention that you are doing personalized demos via online meeting and even sometimes in person, correct?
That is correct, and I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
We're very excited about Unanet Financials. The reviews we've gotten from our customers that have gone through implementation or using it, they're very happy. You know, this is our first release, so we do have some additional features and functionality that will be added in upcoming releases, but it's very exciting. It's very exciting, and I'm happy to do demonstrations, talk through requirements, workflow, those types of things with individual customers. Absolutely.
And one other question, I have someone asking about how the upgrade works and how the Unanet Financials licensing works.
Okay. When you say how the licensing works, you can choose to go either to tracking with financials or portfolio with financials, and it's a single, you know, it's based on your number of active users, just like your current license is. So what Unanet has a very simple licensing structure. It's just based on active users. We don't tell you how many accountants or how many administrators you can have. We let you choose, but by doing so we have a lower cost per license, per seat, but we don't restrict how those roles are assigned.
Right. Excellent. And I was thinking Unanet Financials, it's considered an add-on license. So you would add it on and then just simply unlock this additional functionality in your Unanet instance. So it makes the upgrade really easy. Typically there's some consulting involved for configuration and setup of these additional features.
Yes. I have a slide here that I'm kind of running out of time, but as far as the implementation, a lot of the questions we get is how long does an implementation take? And it really varies by customer. Average is 2 to 4 months. Some of the variables that factor into that is going to be, your current use of Unanet and your current configuration. Are you reconciling your cost and your revenue monthly, or does that need to be set up and configured? The complexity of your requirements. How much historical data do you need? What is your availability? We know accounting teams usually are very lean. They work a lot of hours, so putting in doing an implementation, is on top of all of their normal day work. So what is the availability to meet and complete homework items? Do we have access to decision makers as key decisions need to be made? We also have an accelerated standard adoption program, which is basically allows you to bring our feature-rich financial software to smaller, more budget-minded organizations, and it makes the process easy and affordable for customers. And the way we do that is because it's your configuration and your implementation is based on standards for government contractors that Unanet has already tested and we've implemented with other customers, so it makes it go much faster. In this I'm just going to show this screen because again I know we're running out of time, but this shows you kind of what an implementation plan might look like. You can see we go through 5 basic phases in implementation, starting with planning, the execution, the user acceptance testing or quality assurance, and then system launch and training, and then a closeout process. And I can tell you that before we transition any financial customer to customer account management, we take them through a minimum of 2 month-end closes. This is something that's determined during implementation with your consultant, but we recommend at least a minimum of 2. Now, a lot of our customers that have implemented are actually doing month-over-month transactional processing to load some of their historical data, so they're getting that experience in training and going through the process in advance of going live. There's lots of different options that we can support as far as that workflow and choices. You'll see some of the different milestones. We start with a planning meeting where we schedule out your implementation. We go through a business process discovery session where we're understanding requirements. Then we just go through that core configuration, and you can see the different things that are involved. So if you've already got things like costing, billing, and invoicing set up, and you're reconciling that information, it moves much faster because we don't have to do some of that during the implementation of financials. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could show you.
Thanks, Robin. It looks like we're about to hit 1 hour, but this was excellent. Thank you so much for going over these slides too. These answered our customers' questions perfectly.
Perfect. Yep. So I didn't show the Q&A slide when we were there, but we do have a short